All right, cool. Well, welcome everyone. Today I'm talking about burning $4.3 million a year. And so I pay $4.3 million a year right now to Midas. And so I want to break down exactly where that money goes and ultimately whether I'm an idiot or if this is a pretty good deal. And so let's dive into it. First, the big thing to realize is, let's go over these numbers. In 2023, we did $40 million in revenue. We paid 3.5 in royalties. In 2024, we did 43 million, paid 3.8. And in 2025, almost 49 million, 4.3 being paid out. And so the first part is for context. I own 35, now 36 as of last week, Midas auto repair franchises in Philadelphia and New Jersey. And so this question I get all the time, which is, why not just open a Beers Tire and Auto, right? Why not just be independent? And there's a number of reasons why I would not want to do that. And we're going to kind of dive into them here. And the first is, I have a non-compete. Anytime you sign a franchise agreement, you're going to sign a non-compete that basically says that you cannot run a competing business for as long as you're a franchisee and potentially after that for a period of time. And so if for whatever reason I said, hey, one day I want to go independent, I would need to sell all of my stores and I'd basically have to start all over again. And, I don't personally have an interest in doing that. But it's something that a lot of people do. So as people are going and evaluating getting into a franchise, there's this idea of like, is that non-compete worth it? And for some brands, it's honestly like people feel like they've learned everything and then they can go ahead and do it without them. And that can be a sticking point. But for me, not an interest. And there we go. So I think cool. Welcome to guys. So if you're joining me live, any questions you have, go ahead, put them in the chat. The goal is to be interactive as they all are. And so the $4.3 million I pay, where does it actually go? Now in our model, about half of that money goes to marketing, which in my mind, has to get spent either way. So you're going to spend money on marketing. You got to get customers in the door. And so for us, half of it goes to marketing. The other half is what the real royalty cost is. And every franchise is different in how they do it. And so there's a big part of when someone's looking at a brand to really understand how much are you paying and is it worth it? For us, it ends up being less than 5% of sales, maybe 4.5 or something in that range is kind of the real cost on an ongoing basis to be a franchisee. And so there's a couple things of how I think through this. Number one is that, I wouldn't be this big if I wasn't a franchise. I think this is ultimately the biggest reason that it's really hard to grow when you're on your own. And the whole point of a franchise is that you own the business, you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself. And that, you've got systems that, you've got these playbooks. But then there's this whole other part, and I'm going to talk about this in pretty good detail here, which is everything else that allows you to move quicker. And so yes, my margins might be lower than an independent owner doing the same volume, but ultimately my dollars might get way higher because I'm part of this system. And so that's the biggest thing. It's ultimately in my mind, it comes down to a cost of doing business, right? It's like a ticket to the show that if you want to get in, you want to play this game, this is just the cost of doing it. And it's not necessarily about what the percentages are in my mind versus more of the dollars. And how much dollars am I actually taking to the bank? And is this a good investment or not? And so I'm going to talk about this in a couple of ways. One of them is through Midas, which is, our biggest business that, this year we'll do 50 million, but I'm also an investor and a franchisee in some other brands, some emerging brands through partnerships. And so I also want to kind of contrast this to what we're seeing in more of these newer concepts. And then I'm also going to talk about the red flags would make this totally not worth it and a huge risk here. And so, so for example, there's another brand, it's called Waterloo Turf. So I'm an investor and an advisor at the franchisor level. I'm also a franchisee. This is Rick. He's my partner. We launched Houston last year, and we just launched a piece of Dallas this year. And for us, one of the big values of being a franchisee is we have zero turf experience. Like I'm obviously here in Philadelphia, like doing all this stuff that I'm doing. And Rick spent 22 years in the Navy as he was a Navy CB. And so CBs are basically construction. And so he traveled the world with Navy SEALs and would go to war zones and like build anything they need built, like bridges, bases, airplane, like runways, you name it. These guys could build it. And so he retired, and I was looking for a partner after I made this investment in this turf company and said, hey, I want to find a partner who we can operate, and I need somebody who's a total badass. And so I found Rick. And for us, a big value in paying royalties was, zero turf experience. And this job right here that he's at, I think was the third job that we did. And I think it was $30,000 to do this like putting green and all this stuff around this person's house. And even today, yesterday, he sold a $70,000 job. And so we've built this like whole pipeline from zero turf experience last June when we launched to now. Rick is probably the most knowledgeable person on turf, more knowledgeable than like a lot of other people, even in the brand. It's actually funny. But because the point of a franchise, a good franchise, and there's a lot of bad ones too, this is not a blanket statement, is that they can take decades of knowledge and experience and they can compress that into a matter of days. And so those are the big things you get, right? You get all the things we're going to talk about with a brand. Like Midas is a known brand. I can open up a new store and people are coming in on day one. But like turf, right? Nobody knows it. And so we're not paying necessarily for, quote, the brand as we are. The real value is in the decades and all the other things here. And so there's a lot of factors that you have to consider if you want to go down this path. And for us, it's been in that business, it's been a huge win. Real estate is a big part of it. So if in a real estate based business, retail specifically, the real estate itself is incredibly scarce. So in Midas, like we need a specific location that's zoned right, that's the size is right, that's not too close to competitors, and all of these things. And in the franchise system, if you think about it this way, like Midas already controls 1,000 of these locations. They are not losing control of them. There's only so many spots that a shop could go. And so if I was Beers Tire and Auto trying to get into prime real estate, it would be almost impossible because they are all controlled by the major players, right? There's a Pep Boys, there's a Mavis, there's a Firestone, there's a Midas, there's a Meineke, there's a like whatever. There's probably not going to be an independent on that road. And so if you think, all right, they're already in the grasps of these franchisors, these corporations, the only way for me to gain access, right, is to do it through the acquisitions, right? The acquisitions of buying out that existing franchisee to get access to that real estate that otherwise I wouldn't have access to. Again, very specific for what I do in retail automotive. If you're like a nail salon or something that could go into any strip center that's 1,500 square feet or whatever, like not maybe as important as something that is so specialty like what I do. And cool question here. And by the way, I am taking questions. The whole point to be live here. So let me just make sure I do this thing right. Okay, there we go. Cool question. So I was talking about partnerships. How do I find business partners? How do you know they're the right ones? Yeah, man, it's one of the toughest decisions. If you find a business partner, you're basically getting married, in that you go down this road. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I have is about every person has to bring something to the table, right? And so it's either they bring money. So in my case, it was money. Like I funded it, right? So I brought the money. You bring the experience and the knowledge to say, like, I know what to do. Because you can have people who just have money. They can write a check, but they can't help beyond that. So there's like the strategic experience partner that kind of knows, like, these are the pieces that have to go in place. And then finally, you have the actual work, the time, like what it takes to actually do the thing. And so those are like the three things that have to blend together for a good partnership, and at least in my mind. And for me, like, I could bring the money, I could bring the experience. I don't have the time. And so I was looking for somebody who had the time to be able to dedicate, I mean, Rick probably works 80 hours a week on this, like it's his life. But then he also has experience in leading teams, in this case, vast experience in construction, which, just allowed him to ramp up way quicker. And so those are kind of the ingredients that I'm looking for in a great partner. And I think anybody should, because if not, if you've, the ones where I've seen them fail is you have like two people that come together and they both have money. And like, okay, money's fine, but like, who's actually going to do the work? Or if you have two people who have a ton of time on their hands, but they don't have the strategy to know where to go, they don't have the money, then it's like they could be butting heads or like running over each other. And so that was it for me. And honestly, like, I've had a ton of great experience hiring and working with for veterans who've played at very elite levels, like my CEO and CFO for the Midas business, both former Lieutenant Colonel and Army Rangers. And so I specifically went out and wanted to find somebody with the background, and I got it in Rick. So great question. Acquisition. So another big part of it, somewhat tied to the real estate, especially in brands that have been around a little while, is acquisitions are the quickest way to scale any business. We look at my my Midas business. 32 out of my 36 stores have been acquired. I have 4 new locations that we've opened from scratch. The one was just last week. We did another one last July, and then 2 others in the previous years. But like the speed, if you want to grow, it is through acquisitions in any business. And in a franchise system, franchisees want to sell to other franchisees. It is the first preference is to find somebody else who's already doing it. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One of them is just the synergies, right? Of somebody who is already in the business. They already understand exactly what you do. They're possibly already approved by the franchisor for growth. They may be able to have cost savings, right? So when you buy it, like you're able to have costs on whatever, accounting and district managers and all these different things. Versus like somebody from the outside has to get approved. They don't know the business model. And so they're going to ask way more questions and be way more detailed than like I'm going to be. And it's going to take longer. And the franchisor, like you may think this is a great buyer, but the franchisor's like, nah, they suck. Like, I don't want them. We don't like them for whatever reason. They can do it. And so a lot of franchisees just want to sell to other franchisees. And what this does is if you're up in the buying mode, so for me, for years, I've been in the buying mode, that the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, basically gives you the pipeline. It gives you of all the people, like this is the Goddard School. It's like a early education franchise. They have hundreds of locations. I just grabbed a screenshot of it. You can go to you can go to these websites to download these. You also get them from the brands. But there it is. Here's all the locations. Here are all the owners. This is public information. Here's the phone numbers. These are phone numbers that are normally to the location, not to the owner. But it's very easy to find, LinkedIn and find all these people and message them and stuff. And so that's like as an outsider. Once you're on the inside, I mean, everybody knows each other. You go to conferences, even that Waterloo Turf, like it's next Saturday's their program. So I'm flying there and, everybody gets together and they share ideas and, ultimately that's how you can get these deal done. Let's see here. We got a question coming in. How do I determine the value of a franchise you're buying, a multiple of SDE? Feels like a good single location. Wonder if there's a better approach. Yeah. Great question. It depends a lot. So on Midas, a couple different ways we do it. Yes, SDEs, or for those, it means seller discretionary earnings, basically like cash flow to the owner is short term. And so a lot of them do trade kind of at that 2.5 to 3x. So it's making $100,000 a year. And let's say there's like a store manager in place so that you're not necessarily taking that role. And so that's going to trade somewhere around 250 to maybe 350, kind of at the high end. But it all depends. And I mean, I have bought stores as low as like a 1x. Like I paid 110 for a store that was making, I think 100,000. So it was about a 1 times. I've paid as much as 5 times. I've paid $500,000 for a store making 100. But we do that often using seller financing. So I'm able to structure the deal because it's franchisee to franchisee, and they know and trust me that we can put a low payment down, maybe I put 5% down on some of these deals, and then we just make payments over time. And that's often how we're able to, come up with some win-wins where we can get the total price that the seller wants, but then we can get terms that are really, favorable to us. So that's the main reason. If they have a lot of inventory, that is often in addition to this. We don't carry a significant amount, but I've seen that for other businesses. For example, there's like some popular ones that buy, sell, trade, use electronics, and so they may have $60,000 to $100,000 of inventory on the shelf that once you buy, you're going to be able to sell. And so often, very similar, they may value the cash flow, something around that, and then plus some sort of usually slightly discounted value on inventory. And so it does vary, but often the goal is like, how do we get the deals done? And that's kind of been my approach. And so when you're looking at these deals, especially when you're already a franchisee, that the data is usually shared. So like every day, Midas sends out sales rankings. I know what every single store in the country did in revenue. I know what the costs are going to be, because like we all have similar costs. Even in Waterloo Turf, the turf brand I'm part of, they're sending rankings out for the market, who's the winner and all these things. And so like once you're in the system, who the players are, who may be struggling, who may be acquisition opportunities. And so all of that kind of compounds into, if you really want to grow and you get good at being an operator, you have this giant pipeline. So like all these other people are on biz buy sell and they're fighting over deals and chasing down brokers, and there's like lots and lots of like, it's really hard, right? It's really hard to buy an independent business. But when you're in a franchise system, it's almost reversed. It's almost actually incredibly easy in order to do it. Now the question is, does that location make sense to where you're at? Do you have to like get on a plane? Like there's a lot of other things, but generally they get sold internally unless the brand doesn't want that. Some don't. Some want like a 1-to-1 ratio. I have a program called 8-Figure Franchisee. This is one of the pillars inside of it. So like we go through, I have a ton of stuff that shows exactly how do we map out an expansion strategy, create these deal pipelines, map them, acquire them, value them, convert them, seller financing, all this stuff. And so anyway, for anybody that's like a franchisee specifically and really looking to grow, you can shoot me a message on that. It's tons of great stuff there. Senior care. All right, question. Can you do a similar roll-up on a senior care franchise? Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm actually a partner in a senior care franchise where we bought an existing one here in the Philadelphia area. And, my partner in that is doing something very similar in terms of he's out there building relationships with the neighboring franchisees. We are who are all older and eventually going to want to retire. And he will be the first call when they're ready to do that. And, the challenge in that business specifically all comes down to like the leadership structure, right? Like how do you go about scaling it? And it all comes down to building the people and having like the roles, having the architect to manage it. And so that is going to be the bigger challenge in that is really strong systems and people. Because as you grow, like you as the owner are going to have less like personal touches to it, but that's where you can really have an impact. So yeah, totally works. Slightly different way, but totally works. Another big reason I talked a little bit earlier, but like a part of paying the royalties, if you have a known brand, so Midas is a very known brand. I mean, I can open up a new location. I have customers walking in on day one. If I had Beers Tire and Auto, nobody's ever heard of me. Like it is going to be a very long road to be able to build that up, right? You're going to go very strategically. You're going to go like probably one market to the next that are joining. You already have like existing customer base and existing side of it. Now, the trade-off though is that with a major brand that people know, they also have bad experiences, right? I mean, I hear it in the comments all the time of people who go to another Midas that, I don't own or somewhere else in the country. And they're like, I'm never going back again. They tried to rip me off. They do this, they did that. Right. And so that is the balance. There's pros and cons to all of it. And at the end of the day, it's, there's trade-offs, and anything in business, you just have to decide, is it worth it? And for me, it is worth it to say I can't control what happens in Alabama or Texas or Florida and all this stuff, right? But I can control what happens in my neighborhood. I can control the reputation that my brand Midas has within, a 5-mile radius. And if you can get good at the roll-ups, then, like for me, I own majority of the stores in the market. And so if anybody's in the Philadelphia or Northern New Jersey area, they're probably going to go to one of my locations. And I hope that like the experience across my stores is consistent, right? And so that the experience of Midas in the Philadelphia area is good, so that like then there's a compound effect there. Now, when you're just starting out though, you're going to have 1 or 2 locations. You're obviously not going to have that, that buying power for you, but over time, that is one of the things that I recommend. And let me try to pull up a map here real quick for you. In that, like, the more that you can control, the like, just the more synergies you're going to have. And that's all part of the power in anything that gets bigger, right? Is 2-step verification on my Google. I'm not gonna be able to show you it, but it's okay. It's like this leapfrog where you kind of want to go one to the next, to the next, to the next. And the more that you can saturate, the better. And a good franchisor should be intentionally looking to get the bad guys out. And so for the last 2 years, I mean, it has been a message in Midas internally. They call them detractors, anybody who they think like detract from the brand value. And so they were aggressively working to have people who don't want to uphold the standards get out. I ended up buying one of the locations. I think almost all of them have been acquired now or closed down. And, franchise agreements are written in a very one-way side. Like, they give the franchisors all the power, right? They give them all the power to force things upon owners. And this is kind of where the trust comes in, because I want to sign those agreements, and I know that I'm going to hold up my end of the bargain. I want if I am operating at a high level, and I want the franchisor to be able to enforce it upon people who are not, especially if it was one of my neighbors. Like, if I had a neighboring location that was like, it looks like crap, they're ripping people off. Like, it's just like if anybody walks by, they're like, that's like Midas is crappy. Look at this location, right? That like hurts me if I have the Taj Mahal across the street. And so I want them to have the ability and take action, within reason, to either help these people like upgrade and make their moves, or also to get out of it. And so just like, but that's all part of it. But on the other hand, 3,000 franchises, this is not a blanket statement. Some of them do use it like in that power in bad ways. And I'm going to talk about some validation, how you go about actually vetting it in a little bit, but that's a big part of it. Yeah, this guy, Brent's saying it's beers, tires, and autos. Sounds better than beers, tire, and auto. Good. Yeah. We get them drunk while you're waiting for your car. It's great. I had this plan. In Pennsylvania, all the beer stores are independently owned, and they're like different from liquor stores, and they're different from like the grocery store, whatever. It's weird here. But I had this idea if I could buy all the beer stores, all the beer distributors, and then I'd call it beers. It'd be fun. And then I'd raise the prices, because I own them all. I'm not gonna do it. Don't worry. What do we got? How do you balance, this is a question from Greg, and we'll get into some of this brand stuff. Oh shit, hold on. Let's see. How do you balance being a business operator versus working in the business? I feel like I'd be more comfortable working in it before working on it. Yeah, great. Great question. Definitely something. Even for me, my dad owned shops, so like I worked in the shops, so I was able to learn the business for 6 years, and then I went and bought my first. So like I wasn't totally new to it. First time I owned something, but had the experience just in it. So I think that does help. It really depends on the business though, and what you're doing. I mean, even for like Rick, Rick had no experience in turf, but within weeks he has got it down. So I think it really depends on the technical side of it. That's a big part of what anybody would do when you're talking to new franchisees, is to ask them like, what did you do before? How long did it take you to get up to speed? is there other additional experience you wish you had before, that kind of thing. Even in Midas, I mean, there was a guy who he had a background in marketing. He worked for like Yellow Pages doing sales, and so he had zero automotive like knowledge, and he bought a location in Philadelphia and did a very good job for many years. And then he wanted to move and do something else, and I ended up buying his store. But we became friends, and even for him, he had zero experience, but in many ways, he did things better than we were doing it. Like I was learning things from him through the process of buying his stores and just like being friends with him. So don't keep that as a total like limiting factor. So what about new brands, right? So like Midas is great. It's been around for 70 years, but often, where people are looking at new brands. So Waterloo Turf, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an investor, an advisor. I'm a franchisee. I'm all of it. And we're in Texas for that business. And so nobody knows the brand, right? Like nobody knows that brand. Nobody's going to know a lot of the emerging brands. So like you have to think of it in a slightly different way, which is do I like the brand? Like, would I be proud driving this around? Do they have a good website? Do they do the marketing people really have something that's like, oh, that's different. Like that stands out, right? Or is it kind of like, this like looks like everything else, or this kind of looks crappy, or like I wouldn't really want to wear that on my shirt, like because a lot of these brands, like that's kind of the initial, like that's all you got in the beginning, right? And then over time, it gets known, the market gets filled in, the brand's been around for a while, right? And you get brand recognition, but every brand starts at zero. Right? Like every single one of them, even Midas started at zero one day. And so it's kind of this question of, do you want to be part of this like pioneer to be able to kind of build the brand and build the reputation? And you don't have the trade-offs of somebody who had kind of a bad experience because just like nobody knows about it. And so if you own, like we own Waterloo Turf in Houston, like my partner and I, and so we can create the brand reputation in Houston. And if it's not good, it's 100% on our shoulders. And so that is how I like to think about it. Cool question here. Have you ever, now you mastered franchising, you think there's more pros and cons if you were independent? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get into some of them, but for me, there's like the team aspect of like, I don't really like marketing. I don't really want to deal with like websites. I don't want to deal with like a bunch of other things where I would rather just pay a little bit of the revenue and then have all these other people who do that for me. So, and then there's a couple other ones that I'll get into too, because it's really a great question. Honestly, like this is what I really want to cover. Buying power. So like a great brand should have crazy good deals on supplies, on like your supplies to purchase turf, to purchase tires, to purchase like whatever it is. Like I should get a better price because I'm part of a national brand with power than the independent guy. And that's not always the case, but like the best do. Marketing power, if done right, should be massive. Because if you think about you're just like one person, maybe spending $5,000 a month, and I may also be spending $5,000, but my budget's part of a total that's $100,000 a month. Like we should get more impressions. We should be able to get, more leverage and all that. And so you should actually save money and get more dollars for your bucks if it's done right. Lenders who understand the brand. So I have a friend who's in my 8-figure franchisee program there, who is a franchisee of Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and he is working on acquisitions now. I think he's got 2 or 3 in the pipeline, and he has a lender that is willing to give him 100% financing on these acquisitions, like no money into the deal to take over these 2, and like it's because that bank has lent on a ton of different tropical smoothies, and they have an extremely low failure rate. They're extremely predictable. He's obviously a very good operator with excellent credit and all these things. But over time, like that happens. And if you can establish really good track record and you're in like a strong brand, then the financing like problem can actually be a lot simpler. And so something to consider. Cool. Some other questions. Let's see. Big fan. Thanks, man. Charlie, question on hiring. Tex. Yeah, man. I mean, we hire everyone through Indeed, like as boring as it sounds. Not everyone. We hire, Indeed's our primary source. We also work referrals. We've tried some different recruiters throughout the years. But it's a constant game. I think the best thing you can do that we found is you're always hiring, quote unquote. So Indeed, you can post like free ads. And so we just post up literally free ads every single week. Even if we don't have any roles to fill, it doesn't cost anything. And at least like that starts to generate some resumes. We contact every single person. And sometimes we'll find someone really good and have a great conversation. And maybe we're not ready or they're not ready, but now we put them in a Rolodex, right? Or like contact database. And then when there is an opening, we do reach out, or maybe around the holidays or something, we'll like send them a little happy holiday letter. And we're constantly on it, because even if you find a great employee who's happy at another location, like things change all the time. And so by staying kind of in contact, we found that really helps. Even for managers, you're looking for leaders. I mean, we had a guy that, and I spent yesterday with him. I mean, I think I interviewed him in 2023, and I think it took us over a year to get him to come aboard. And I mean, he's one of our best managers and running an extremely profitable shop that he turned around. And so some of them do take time, but like the more that you're willing to kind of invest in it and really build it, the better. This guy says he's got 20 employees leads in 2 days. Yeah, 2-3 days. Yeah, Indeed's like, They got it. They got it all. So a couple of things. The franchise community. Now this is one that a lot of people don't know about, but like in a great brand, the community should be very strong in terms of franchise owners sharing all the stuff that you want to know, right? How much money did you make? What are you doing for like hiring strategies? What are you doing for compensation plans, P&Ls? Like there's this idea of like a built-in mastermind, like you're getting together to share all these things. And like the value in that alone, for me, pays for it. Like I've gotten more ideas that probably have made me multiple millions of dollars from other owners that we've just become friends with. And we can call up anytime, and I share just as much with them. And I think that's a big part of it, and that's one that you want to vet for too. Let's say another question coming in. With higher risk of owning a newly created franchise, what is the upside? Why take the risk? Yeah, great. I mean, great question. I mean, that is the magical question too. Like, is it worth it? And a lot of times it's not, to be completely honest. Like, people reach out to me all the time who own franchises, and some of them it's like, it's brands I've never heard of. There's no support. There's none of the things that I'm talking about. And it's like, it is a huge risk. On other cases, it could be that you're getting into something that's, the first of its kind, or something that is like doing something in a different way that people aren't doing today. I think that is where like I think it's the most interesting. And so for the turf business, for example, and like not to pitch it, but like, as I mentioned, I'm an investor, I'm a franchisee, so like I'm like multiple levels here, but there are no other turf franchises in the country. So we are the first nationwide turf company in America. All the other big turf companies, and there are some really big regional players, are independents, or they're like distributorship models where the manufacturer has specific people in specific areas, but there's not the franchise. And so the benefits on the franchise model is we don't have. Like the distributorship model has contracts, like they have to buy from the distributor. So we wouldn't have that, right? We can buy from anybody. There's also, a nationwide brand should be able to create nationwide partnerships with other franchises, for example, like the Goddard School, as an example earlier, daycare centers, even like, and this is maybe not the great example for them, but like, a restaurant chain that use turf across the country for a courtyard or something, or like Marriott's, right? So you want to look for something that makes it unique. There's a brand called Rolling Suds that is like one of the fastest growing power washing franchises in the country. I helped the number one franchisee kind of get into it. He's a good friend of mine. And, for him, it was like Rolling Suds' whole thing. And there's like a lot of chat about them on Twitter and stuff, and some, pros and cons. But is they're really focused on commercial work. So for them, they're like, we can build this big infrastructure of franchisees, and then we can go after massive national accounts. So ones like Starbucks, like Speedway gas stations, like 7-Elevens, like Taco Bells, and that on a national level, the brand can win contracts that then franchisees kind of are able to do locally. And so that's a big part of it. And there's a lot that goes into it. And that's that is the hardest part, to be totally honest, is figuring out, is it worth it? And it really depends on the person and what you're looking for in your goals. And some people love to be on the ground floor. Like some people just like love the idea of like, I'm going to get into this brand and I want to help build it. I want to help be kind of a pioneer in developing these systems. And I understand that the brand is still getting like built while the airplane's like flying here. And there's other people that like don't want that at all. And they're like, I just want to get into like a totally proven brand. I understand it's going to cost more. I understand that the growth could be slower, but I understand that the playbooks that are written are probably somewhat set in stone, right? Like things aren't going to be as dynamic. They're probably not going to adapt to, AI and like whatever, all these things as quick, because they have their way of doing it. And I'm okay with that. So like there's like opposite sides of the spectrum. And I think that's a big part of honestly what makes franchising great is like you can kind of pick what you want. So I'm going to get my thing a little bit better here. Okay, cool. Another big part of like what you should be looking for in any of these brands are R&D. Like what's the future? So Midas, for example, like cars are constantly changing. There's EVs, there's ADAS, there's all this like complicated stuff. I don't want to get into it, but like, they are at corporate working to figure out what are these cars going to have. Like what do we think is a fad now versus what is here to stay? What equipment are we going to need? How can we adapt? Who are going to be the pilot franchisees to test all this stuff off? So like I benefit from the innovation because all these other people are trying to figure it out. So like I don't have to figure it out on myself. In the food franchises, Munchkins from Dunkin' Donut were invented by a franchisee. I think the Big Mac was invented. I think the Filet-O-Fish, like some of the most iconic things in franchising were created by franchisees. And, through these like R&D and the test kitchens and the test pilots and all this stuff. And so like, I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I just focus on operations, and when I feel it's ready, I can benefit from it. Cool. So some of the downsides, we talked about a lot of mainly the good stuff here. Let me get into some of the bad, not fun things. Kind of in the Midas specifically at scale, like I can't sell my stores to a larger independent private equity backed roll up, which would be like the biggest payday, quote unquote. There's a bunch of these groups out there right now who are buying all these independents. A lot of times they keep the brand name and then they're like, on the back end, they make it all the same. I could probably get the most money if I sold to one of them, but that because of the non-compete, that would not be allowed. Whoever bought the franchise has to keep it a franchise. And so in some cases, that could actually be good if there's a very big player in a brand that is doing the consolidation, because for them, like it's way easier to buy a big one. Like I said earlier, like acquisitions are the way to go if you can do it. But on the flip side, like the franchisor, so in my case, it's Midas or any of them, they have to approve the buyer, and that could potentially lead to lower valuations if they don't like the person that has the money to pay, right? So that could be a problem. They may require a larger company to break up. So maybe you built like a very large company. Like maybe I somehow get to 80 stores or 70 stores or something, but then if a new buyer comes in, they may not want that person with zero experience of that group to acquire it. So, and these are like big problems, but like it happens at every scale. You also have the possibility of a non-renewal. And so franchises are signed on agreements that are like, 10 or 15 or 20 years, something in that range. And at the end of let's say it's a 10-year agreement. At the end of the 10-year agreement, in theory, they could not renew you in terms of like, and then if they ran locations themselves, they could in theory just not renew you and then take it over. Now, you would obviously sue them. You would obviously have like a bunch of things, but like it is a possibility. There are normally things written in there that like to be not renewed, they have to have a reason. They have to have cause, but as long as you're in good standing, it should be like an automatic. But again, this is what's like in franchise agreements. This is why like a lot of people hire franchise attorneys to review them. This is why you talk to franchisees, and this is like part of all the due diligence when diving into this industry is like there's all these contracts and understanding them is important. This has never happened in anything that I've ever been involved in, by the way, but it could happen. They could use buying power for leverage for higher rebates for them. So a great brand will use their buying power to negotiate better prices for franchisees. And yeah, maybe they scrape a little bit on the back end for them, but like it's a net savings to the franchisees. The really bad ones use their buying power to just purely profit. So Quiznos, if you remember that story, like they went out of business because they required the vendors to pay massive rebates to them as the franchisor, and the suppliers just said, okay, well, we're just going to raise our prices by whatever, 10 or 20% to the franchisees. So ultimately, it became like a phantom royalty, and franchisees couldn't make any money. They ultimately went out of business, and they're no more. They also have, in some cases, 100% control of the advertising dollars. Now, advertising is like a big subject, and it is, we pay into a big bucket, and as our 5% or half the royalties that I pay goes into this big bucket. They have 100% control over those dollars and how they're spent, what markets, what mediums. We vote on some things, but ultimately, whatever the marketing agency kind of decides is generally what happens. Now, I spend dollars locally that I have 100% control over, but could not necessarily. All right. Question: the auto parts business that I owned, yeah, it was Radiator, and not like there were other franchisees that made money in that business. I mean, I sold it to a guy who drove up in a Ferrari. He was one of the best, top performing franchisees. But it is a inventory business. It's a heavy cash based, like you have to have cash. So for context, it was a wholesale distributor of radiators and other parts, like niche cooling parts, and you would wholesale them to other automotive repair shops and like body shops and stuff. And I was used to the service business, which was, high margins and like transactional in terms of like, people come in, we fix a car, they leave. Like it was like one and done. But I got into the parts business thinking that, oh, this is easy. Like I know these guys, like these people come into our stores, like what's the difference? But I quickly realized it was a completely different model in that this business was both of these, like Mighty, and I'm familiar with Mighty. It's just like a competitor that's slightly different, but they're B2B, right? You're not selling to consumers, you're selling to businesses, which require relationships, right? You going in over and over and over again and building the relationship with somebody, because chances are they're buying from somebody else that they already have a relationship with. And unless there's like a huge pain there, they're not going to switch to you. And so it requires like a different sales process in building a B2B business than a consumer-based business. So for me, like I was just like do mass marketing, convert them on phone calls, like sell them the repairs, whatever. Totally different. So I did not have the skills. I never hired people like that before, and so it was a challenge. The other one is inventory. So like we carry like maybe 20 grand of inventory in the stores, something like that. So it's not a huge number, mostly tires. But in like those businesses, it is an inventory-driven business. And so if you get into something like that, you have to invest, $100, $200, $300, whatever it is, $1,000 of inventory to stick on your shelf, and like you make money by turning the inventory. But there's this challenge: if you're not making money, it's hard to buy more inventory. And then if you don't have inventory on the shelf, you can't sell it. And if you don't sell it, your sales go down, and then you get into this like death spiral, right? And that was the problem that I had in that brand. Was like I couldn't do the sales, I couldn't make any money, I didn't have the cash to buy inventory. We couldn't then like deliver them in a timely manner, and so people stopped calling us. And then ultimately, I ended up losing a lot of money, like a shitload of money in that. But more importantly, I lost a bunch of time in that it became a distraction. And so this is like one of the things that, I really stress now is is it's way easier to pick like a single business and just like, even though it's boring and you like, even though there's problems, you just get as good as you can in that one single thing. And for Midas, like that has been it, which is, we just keep pounding away and just buying more and more. And all the other things I did, like Radiator and like a few others, I feel like, man, if I just took that money and just bought another store, like I'd have more money and less headaches than it. And I think the challenge is like, as entrepreneurs, we chase novelty, right? We love this concept of something new, of something different. It's the variety of not doing the same old thing every day. But the challenge is you get into that other business. Now you're totally diluted. You lost all your focus. You don't see the business at the deeper level to be able to really make the moves, to do the roll-ups, to do the acquisitions, to find the great people, to do all the things that I'm like, that I'm really talking about here. And I think this is why like a lot of people like hit this plateau, is because they start to get distracted and you chase these other things, kind of looking for an outlet of, you're in this lull in your business where you feel like, it's not going good. Like, I don't think the future's looking bright. Nobody wants to buy. Like there's some sort of like negativity in your mind about the future of the business that you're in. And then for me, like, and I've experienced this many times, like I think most entrepreneurs do this. And then you see these other opportunities and you see opportunity to make money in all these different things. And the grass looks greener and you think like, I think I could do that thing, right? I think I could sell like auto parts to shops. How hard could it be? Not realizing that there's like layers to this game that you don't understand. And if you're not all in it, like you could potentially get crushed. And so like, I am now working to be way more intentional in doing less things in terms of things that I personally have to be the driver on. And so, earlier I talked a little bit about, Rick here, like Rick's my partner in Waterloo Turf, but like I spend zero time on the business except for, Rick calls me when he sells like $70,000 jobs and he wants to celebrate. And talking through strategy of the next hire or, the next thing we're going to do. Like that's what I'm really good at. But I'm not going to be the guy like making calls or like doing any of the things that actually move it forward, because that would dilute what I could do. And so I think that's like a big part, is like, if you're looking for variety, the newness, just try to find an outlet in another way. So for me, it's been like, hey, can I do these partnerships? They have worked. Like I have a couple of these, they're working really well. Maybe I'll do more. Or it's like, honestly, like a hobby or something outside of work, or like, hey, let me try to build like an online thing, or like whatever it is that can satisfy that itch, that doesn't require you to like take focus off the main thing. And I know it's hard, but like I'm telling you, it's worth it. Cool. Let me just get into some of these other ones here. Cool. There we go. Cool. I was just looking at some of these comments. Yeah, barbecue clean. So he's a barbecue cleaning business. You can find franchises have been in 10 years like mine, but not household names. So maybe not great to be first in on something with just a few years of operating experience. Yeah. Yeah. And it's even that. There's tons of brand, like I said, been around for a decade and just aren't well known, especially if they're niche, like niche serving business. And so the success in those, right, becomes marketing. Like, can we get in front of people? Then the referrals, like, do people have a great experience? And do you have a great process? And so you're kind of like looking at what is it? It's like the first principles, like what does it take to be successful in this business? And then those are the things that I really want to concentrate in making sure I win on. All right. So here are some of the negative things, like the things that, people message me and stuff and tell me about it. And I'm like shaking my head. Some of them charge pretty high royalty, like 8%, 9%. I've seen some that are higher than that. But then they also deliver almost nothing in return. So they have high royalties and you're like, well, what am I like getting out of this? I think that's a huge part of it. Marketing exists on paper, but like you never see results. And so you're paying into some sort of like thing that they claim to be doing stuff, but you're never really seeing, like the copy's not getting better. The ads aren't getting any better. Your cost per lead continues to go up. You find out that like you have to become a marketing expert to be able to like do all this shit where like, you're like, isn't that your job? I've seen that. Ones that have hidden fees. So like I think it's item 6 of the FDD will show all the required fees. And so some brands keep it really like simple and clean, and others it's like they nickel and dime you with all these other ones that kind of add up. And then transfer. So like if you go to sell franchise, they could eat into your sale price. Support, it's a big part of it is what are the support that you're actually getting? Some of them it's, somebody who just visits you twice a year. There's not a ton of support, maybe some sort of crash course training, but not there. Economics. So like franchisees aren't really making money. Like you get the general sense that like nobody's really having success, but they're continuing to sell new locations or continuing to tout, all these great things, but there's like a ton of negativity kind of within it. I think that's a big problem. The community is like dead. There's no engagement. I was part of a brand, or I had a friend that was a part of a brand. I was like a little bit involved, and the community, like the brand didn't want people to communicate with each other. Like the brand didn't want franchisees to communicate with each other. Like they intentionally did not want it because they were afraid if like people get, owners get talking and they realize there's all these things, they can put more pressure, which is the entire point of being a franchisee is sometimes you have power as an owner, collectively with other owners. Territory issues, some of them talk about protected territories, but maybe it's not really protected, or maybe they're selling so many locations that cannibalize, the results. And so all that's a possibility. It's all part of like when you dive into a franchise to figure out, is this worth it? And then ultimately once you're in it, a decision to know, do I keep doubling down on this? Like, is this worth it? Is this something that I can make into the size that I really need it to be? Or is this, did I just like buy myself a job and it's really hard to grow? There's really no systems, there's no support. And so talking to franchisees is obviously a huge part of it. Figuring out and asking yourself, like, what does this get me that I couldn't do on my own? For me, the answers are pretty obvious in the brands I'm involved with. I know I couldn't be where I'm at without those. But there's other ones I've seen that like, I'm like, nah, I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure like you could hire a marketing agency or like, and create a brand and create some of these things, that you could do it on your own. And are franchisees making money and they're staying? And would I buy it again, knowing what I know today? Great questions. And cool. If you're here and you have any questions too, just in general, happy to take them live here. Question from Charlie: do you charge for credit card usage in yours? Yeah, so that's like a big thing. A lot of businesses are getting pitched are passing the credit card fees along to consumers. So like the 2 or 3%. We do not currently. It's a big number. It's a really big number for us. I mean, it's $400,000 or something a year. We also don't want people to pay cash. So like, I'm afraid if it's like, if you pay with cash, it would encourage more people to pay with cash. And, over the years we've had issues with people stealing and stuff. And so, the real goal was like, could we get people to pay on a debit card? Because debit cards charge a business a lot less than credit cards do. So, but I would think like in the turf business, yeah, we 100% charge people if they want to use their credit card. It's a $70,000 job. Like we'd rather just take a check or an ACH than a credit card. But in auto, when it's transactional, I feel that I don't know. I'm not there yet. So other people are, but I'm not there yet. Yeah, it's a big number. Awesome. Cool. Good stuff. Well, I hope this was good. If you got any other questions on this, I'm happy to help you figure out, is the franchise worth it is the big question. And it all depends, right? It all depends on the size, the size you're at, how quickly you want to go. Do you want to join a group of other people, marching down the same path, or you're like, hey man, I'm a solo. I just want to be nimble. I don't want to have these fees. I know it'll take me longer to get there, but like, I'm cool with that. And if anybody owns a franchise and they want my help scaling it, I run this program. It's called 8-Figure Franchisee. And so basically all my playbooks inside: how to acquire more locations, how to increase cash flow, how to hire people, find people, how to replace yourself, build an org chart, like literally all these videos documenting all this stuff that I do. We host live calls every Wednesday afternoon, so in a couple hours, where people are coming on and sharing the idea. of of how to grow. And you can reach out on Instagram or Twitter if you have questions on that. What do I think about Tint World? Let me just get this like background. I have mixed feelings on Tint World, to be honest. I think I know some people that do pretty well with it. It's also like, it's non-discretionary, or it's discretionary spending, right? Like someone doesn't need their windows tinted, or the big wheels, or like, the radio. I don't know. I'm not that kind of guy. Maybe they do need it. I don't know. But like, for me, not something that I would get into, because it's too like, I think people could cut it out if they really needed to. But I know they have some good numbers. I know they, have some people who've really figured it out. And so if you're into that kind of thing and you see more of the opportunity than me, it could be good. But I know some struggle too. So, cool. Awesome. Yeah. Been great. Good to see you guys. I'll see you next week. Cheers.